Jameson Williams, you see what came down, the statement that's come out from the Detroit Lions. Where are we with Jameson Williams, and what are we thinking about this being another thing or another blip that has happened to this young man that we see taking so many tremendous strides?
Yeah, no, and I think I'll go back to what I said last week, which is that I have seen, him grow up a lot. I have seen him making better decisions. I have seen him conducting himself more as a professional football player in Allen Park. I think we still don't know what he took to trigger the suspension, so it's difficult for me to comment on that. The situation, driving around with guns, look, get your license, get it to the point where everything is buttoned up if you're going to have something like that. I do think that there's room here to say, yes, he is grown up. Yes, he is more of a professional. But, yeah, he needs to also make better decisions at times. And I think both things can be true. I think you can say that somebody's made strides, but that they have to continue to make strides to complete the whole picture so that these things don't keep cropping up. And again, I wish I had more information on what triggered the 2-game suspension. This situation with the gun, based on what I've seen, what I've read, if he did not have a permit to be carrying that, then that appears to be problematic, and problematic in the way that he could have just taken care of it and had the permit that it appears like, if I'm reading the story correctly, his brother had to carry a gun. So it's about decisions. It's about making the right decisions, and it's about, continuing to make strides to, be the kind of person that this team can have faith in and that the team can trust, which obviously they're clearly working to try to do.
In a situation like this, Dan, does it make you leery of extending an individual like Jameson Williams, even though it seems like he's making those strides? Also, it just seems like things just continue to happen, like you said. Like, are you nervous about extending him at this point?
Yeah, your talent doesn't concern me, but your decision making, I think, if you're going to invest the kind of money that you would need to invest to lock up a Jameson Williams. And look, we don't know what the complete picture of this year is going to be. You're talking about somebody that coming into the season hadn't even caught 25 passes in the NFL. So I don't even know what that extension looks like. But I think it's fair to say, regardless of what the numbers are and regardless of what it is, you want to know that the person that you are committing to through a contract is going to be making a series of good decisions. You can say that you've seen growth. You can say that he's improved, significantly from the day he walked in the door. But I'll go back to what I said before. You want the complete picture, and that is making good decisions so that these things stop coming up. And that would go for any contract you're signing with any player. Look, do players that have incredible talent and speed and ability like J-Mo get more in the way of breaks and people saying, yeah, well, we'll give him a little leeway here? There's no doubt about it. But I think enough has come up now that before you were to commit to something like that, you'd want to see a series of good decisions that followed up what we have here, which appears to be two situations that were certainly avoidable.
Hey, Dan, another week to go before the trade deadline is over. We haven't heard anything yet. I know Dan had some fun with Dave Burkett and the guys the other day about who they're going to trade with, who they bringing up. You saw Dan, how giddy he was. What's your thought going up? We got a week left to go. Do you see one guy coming, two guys coming, or are we going to do the practice squad route?
I mean, look, in my mind, at least one. I do think they'll make a move. I don't know what it will be. I don't know what level it will be. You can. I don't think it'll be the multi-first round guy, but maybe it's the Zadarius Smith that's a little bit below that. The part of this that we don't have the complete picture on is who are the teams they're talking to, and how many other teams are they talking to, and clearly they're going to be trying to get a bidding war going here. But I do believe that the Lions understand the urgency with their pass rush and just how good this football team is. This is a Super Bowl team, potentially. But it is less of one if you cannot pressure the passer or find some way to get a consistent rush. Because even in that game this past weekend, look, there were times where it felt like Rudolph just had too much time. And if you have a more accomplished quarterback, that's really going to hurt you. And it hurts you at times with Sam Darnold. And the quarterbacks only get better as you move through the season to the playoffs and get into that situation. So I still believe they will make a move. I don't base that on anything other than I believe they understand the urgency. I believe they understand the need. And I believe they understand the potential of this team and how you might be impacting the potential of this team if you don't add something to it.
You saw them, you see every single game, you call in every single game. It was a laugher against Dallas minus the Hutchinson, and it was a laugher against Tennessee. I know they're one of the lesser teams, but that offense could do whatever the hell they want at any time. And not only that, the special teams was better than I've ever seen it in the past. Did you see anything on the defense? And I know our secondary has been really good, but do you think they can continue moving forward? Now you start playing the Packers, you got the Texans after that. Can they play teams like that and still, do they have to get in a shootout to win those games?
You know, that's a good question, because I think that certainly comes to mind. If quarterbacks are going to have time to throw, that could be problematic. I do think that secondary is playing at an extremely high level, which I think makes it more enticing to have an accomplished pass rush because you have ball hawks back there that are going to make plays on the football. If you get a quarterback that's rushed a little bit and needs to throw the ball before they're comfortable, which is ultimately what you're trying to do with a rush, and that's where you can get a mistake. So, yeah, I don't think the defense is as good clearly without the type of pass rush they had with Hutch. Now, they're probably not going to get back to that because you're not going to find Hutch. But there is a level between where they are now, where you are with Hutch, and what you might be if you can add something to it. And, you know, I don't know if that means every game is a shootout because Aaron Glenn has proven that he can manufacture some things. But, Maz, what I will say is that's a tough way to live when you have to try to manufacture a pass rush every week. And look, there have been a lot of years where Aaron Glenn didn't have the talent on that defense to do what he wanted to do. I mean, years where they were pulling in corners off the streets and he had to try to figure that out. He's got more talent now than he's ever had, but not having that consistent pass rush is an issue. But I wouldn't go so far as to say they're, you know, going to give up 35 a week or something like that against teams. You're just going to have to we're going to find out together what it looks like if they don't do something. But, again, I still, in my mind, I believe that they are working the phones. Dan Campbell has said that. I'm not breaking any news there, that they are working the phones. And they're trying to come up with something. Just what level that is and whether or not it makes sense is what ultimately will dictate.
Listen, as a dummy football fan, we all sit there, we think we know what we're talking about. You know me with free agents and trades, but you see a team like the Chiefs who have won multiple Super Bowls, going for their third straight again, and going out and getting those players. Sure, they're not going to be the players they're probably going to hold on to after next year because, let's face it, you trade a 5th or 6th round pick when you're the Chiefs, and right now you trade a 5th or 6th round pick if you're the Lions. Those players next year are going to have a hard time making this squad. But if you can get a guy now to help you continue on that roll to the Super Bowl, why don't you do it? I mean, the Chiefs do it. Why can't we do it?
Well, they haven't not done it yet. They just haven't done it yet. It doesn't mean they won't. So, I mean, I'm not here questioning why they won't do it if we don't know that they won't. So that still may happen. And look, I think it goes both ways. There certainly has to be some flexibility here when you talk about going out and trading for another player. But let's also give them credit for this, that they have built this thing to the point where they're a Super Bowl contender and basically done it sticking to their guns, which is not going out and signing huge high-priced free agents, not going out and swinging massive trades that cost you a lot of capital and might gum up your salary cap. They've done it by drafting and developing. So I think you have to give them some credit that they've been disciplined to this point. But I do think also that now you can say, okay, there needs to be a little bit of flexibility in that discipline when you find yourself in need of making a move, which I think they are at this point, because you had an injury, somebody went down, and you need to find a way to help improve a significant phase of your team. But I think the fact that they haven't done a lot of what Kansas City did to this point, I give them credit for that. I think they had a vision of how they wanted to build this team, and I think that has allowed them to get where they are with their salary cap in very good shape and some huge contracts that are going to be coming up here and some really tough decisions that are going to be coming up here with young players. But again, I think there is room within that for flexibility. You can say well done on getting to this point, but there also comes a point where sometimes you have to reassess how you're doing business because you find yourself in a situation that is not where you anticipated being. The potential for winning it all is there, but maybe that potential isn't as great unless you can find just a little something that gives you juice on third down when you're trying to get after a passer.
I completely agree with you, Dan. 6 more days of trade speculation. Detroit's going to go crazy, but I want to switch gears into Green Bay. Obviously, this is a team who's in second in the NFC. We were just talking about them, what a win over Green Bay would mean. I actually want to skip past them and look at the rest of the NFC because the NFC East is interesting. The NFC West is up for grabs. Beyond the Packers, give me the 2 teams that you're most worried about in the NFC right now.
Well, I think Washington is interesting. I think, they're obviously winning football games. They have a winning formula going there. Sometimes it doesn't matter that you're young or that you have a young quarterback. And what he's doing right now is pretty incredible. I mean, they pulled one out of their sock last week against Chicago, which isn't necessarily a great way to live. I think the NFC right now is kind of wide open just because of the injuries that we've seen to San Francisco. Dallas struggling to play right now. I mean, I'm waiting for the NFC to kind of show itself. And right now, I think you could look at Green Bay, you could look at Minnesota, you could look at Detroit and say they're as good as anybody in the NFC. But I do think there's some other teams that potentially we're going to see get on a roll here and, identify themselves as teams that have to be reckoned with in the NFC. The one seeing San Francisco kind of go down with the injuries, I think that's been somewhat significant in terms of a team that you would look at. Look, Philadelphia isn't going anywhere. That's a really good football team. And I think Atlanta's got a chance to kind of find its stride here and get going. And I would say outside of that, does San Francisco get healthy? I don't really see anybody else in the West that I'm necessarily worried about. So I would say, and I'm just yanked up the standings here, to me it's Atlanta, it's San Francisco, it's everybody in the North that you got to deal with. And then it's Washington and Philadelphia, and we'll see if Dallas can recover. But they just appear to be a team that has a lot of holes right now.
Hey, Dan, last question, then we're going to let you go. And we appreciate your patience yet again with our technical difficulties. You've been around those guys. You're in the locker room to a certain extent. You're talking to those guys. You're walking on the plane, the bus with those guys. You're around. What's the energy like for the Detroit Lions right now? Like, what's that player energy like? Like, what are their thoughts? What are their thoughts on where they are right now? I'm sure you have a sense of that.
I think, Braylon, it's just rock steady. I don't think this team – I don't think they get too high. I don't think they get too low. I think their attitude is just, we've talked about this before. It's one of the crazy things that I've learned to love about the NFL. It's 17 one-week lifetimes during the regular season. And when they got to Monday, they turned the page from Tennessee and started looking at Green Bay. And the only thing they're thinking about is Green Bay right now. They're not thinking about a playoff game in January or getting to the Super Bowl. They're thinking about being the best that they can be this week. And it sounds cliche, and it is cliche because it's what coaches talk about all the time, but it really is where they're at. And I think that goes to the head coach who every single week seems to have his guys ready to play. And if it's not all 3 phases, he'll find 2 that are working, and that'll be a way to win. So I think this is a team that knows what it means to win now. I think they've done enough of it that they know how to approach it. I just think that it's business. And I think that this team just finds a way each week to prepare as best they can. I think they have an outstanding coaching staff, which has been proven, and that coaching staff lets them hit the field on Sunday, prepared and ready to go. But emotionally, I think it's just business. I really don't think it's anything other than that. I think that's exactly the way that you want it to be. You're just attacking the next thing that's in front of you, and anything else that you're thinking about just gets in the way.
Emotionally, it's just business. That's why he's the best. He is Dan Miller, the voice of the Detroit Lions radio. We appreciate you for tuning in another Wednesday. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
We appreciate you.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.
Take care, buddy.